looking at in terms of the focus on these elections? How would markets trade if the anti-establishments win?
Well, we haven't been in a place like this before, so let's sort of back up just a little bit. Markets have been driven by the Fed and by China for all of the last year. Now they just look at the spectacle of this race. And remember, I'm based in London talking mainly to global investors, and their big question is, have Americans lost their minds?
What's going on? I mean,
yeah.
that's what everybody, we all get those comments from foreigners who can't understand what's happening. So in terms of investors,
yes.
Do they want to buy stocks, for example, if a GOP person is in the lead, because it might mean tax reform and rolling back regulations? Do the markets trade down with a Hillary Clinton win? Well, because she has, wants to look at...
So Hillary becomes the establishment candidate the way that things are going, and probably is the most market-friendly in that sense, just in the broadest macro sense. And typically, U.S. presidential races don't move markets hugely. If we had a Republican president and a Republican-controlled Congress, or the flip of that, that's the only way that you're going to get much legislative action. Now we have this fragmentation, which we see elsewhere in the world, too, by the way.
Tina, I don't understand one thing. The European institutions say to you, have Americans lost their mind?
And Asians and a lot of other people.
And then what are they doing as a result of it? I mean, have they done anything different with their asset allocation?
Not yet, not yet, because as I said, the markets are still driven predominantly by what's happening with the Fed and China policy and the slowdown. Will there be a U.S. recession? I think if you had an anti-establishment outcome, a Trump presidency, the initial reaction would be a sell-off.
So Trump wins the nomination. You expect these institutions to say, we want to de-risk U.S. equities?
I think you'd have people looking a lot more closely at Trump policies. I get questions every day from investors. What would a Trump foreign policy look like? Would he tear up the Iran deal, meaning we'd go back into talking about bombing Iran? Trade deals. This is about globalization fundamentally, and the U.S. race is really testing, whether it's Sanders or Trump, our commitment to globalization.
Yeah, especially with 45% tariffs on Chinese goods, which is what Trump said. But I have to take issue with one thing you said, and that is that Hillary would be a positive for the markets. Dagan, we already saw what markets think of Hillary when she said, she came out and did a tweet and said, I'm going to hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable, and I'm going to make sure drug prices don't rise.
Sectoral impact for sure. So, but we're talking about the S&P. Typically, the last, the times that we've been alive, you haven't had huge rallies one way or another, unless it's a short-term rally following a Republican presidency. Markets now don't know what to think, because the Republican establishment and Wall Street is having kittens looking at the state of this debate, and the rest of America appears to be energized. So that disconnect
Hillary Clinton wants to raise capital gains tax rates. She wants to change the holding period to receive the long-term capital gains tax.
Obama raised taxes, and we had equity markets continue to rally.
Well, that's the Federal Reserve incorporated in there.
So
let's not forget
it's very difficult to kind of isolate the variables.
But that is a tax that goes directly to stock ownership in this country, and you're going to essentially change the holding period and raise the rates in the short run for people. I don't know how that would be beneficial to the market.
It's a question of Trump versus Clinton. As I said, in that lineup, Clinton becomes the establishment candidate.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I told Maria earlier, I think that the Democrat convention, in addition to the Republican convention, is likely that nomination may be decided over the summer as well. I think, we're all talking about Hillary like it's a given, and I think we may see Bernie Sanders lose 2 states tonight, win 2 states tonight, excuse me. But what I'm looking at is what you said earlier, is the Senate, which is really up for grabs this election. We have John McCain, Portman, Kelly Ayotte, Senator Toomey, people that are in really tight races. And so you could see a Hillary presidency, you can see the Republican keeps the Senate, or vice versa in Trump. So don't you think there's a bit of nuance that the markets will have to see, not only who wins the presidency?
Yes, we're not there yet. At the moment, but let's think about the fact that the other big signpost this year, political signpost for markets, is the UK referendum. And it was also considered unthinkable that the British would vote to leave the EU, and yet it's now a going concern. When we look at these races, markets don't tend to start getting really nervous and start positioning until much closer to the time.
Tina, if we believe that markets started the year poorly because of fears of a recession in the United States and what was happening in politics, why have we rebounded in the last 4 weeks if Trump has picked up steam?
I think that those phenomena are disconnected.
So
at
the
this
po-
point.
so the
It's
politics
not
are-
really it.
so
Until
the-
we have candidates this summer, I
Yeah.
think that you're just looking at sort of one-day moves like that in a sector after a
Right.
direct statement, as you mentioned about pharma. Until the summer, I don't think you're going to see a lot of.
But but to all the overseas investors who seem,
Why are Americans so angry? That's the question.
Right, but well, why don't they look at Germany? Look at Germany and the regional elections over the weekend.
Yeah.
And it was a slap in the face to Angela Merkel and her open border policy.
Yeah.
It's similar to what's going on here to investors who point to us and go, they're crazy.
And
you know
with all
what's
due
happening
respect-
around the
exactly.
world.
And with all due respect to everybody else around the world, when we were having the domestic fight about health care, I remember being in Italy, and many Italian people around me said, ho, 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 Americans are so stupid. You don't even want free health care. Like, you didn't realize.
I got the same thing.
They don't understand.
Summer 2007, I got the same thing from the taxi driver in Greece.
Exactly. So they don't understand what's happening domestically. It wasn't that people don't want health care. That wasn't the issue. They didn't want that. They looked at that as health insurance and not health care. So I'm just saying.
Yes, how things look to outsiders. But at the moment, what it looks as though people are not necessarily voting with their pocketbooks in the way that they might have. Our markets rational. This pitchfork moment that's going on is, and those scenes of fights at rallies and things, it looks like 1968.
Wow.
It doesn't look good.
Tina, stay with us for a second, because I want to bring up another issue with you, and that is former Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson announcing plans to work in the Trump White House should the GOP frontrunner win the November election. Carson said in an interview that he would serve the Trump administration in an advisory capacity, but failed to provide any details on the position or whether he will serve in Donald Trump's hypothetical cabinet. This is an interesting comment, Morgan, because Ben Carson reportedly sees himself in some sort of educational advisor to Trump. Trump hasn't confirmed it, but I guess they must have had a conversation about this.
Well, I think it's completely normal whenever you see, candidates, former candidates endorse. One, we normally expect in Washington that they're going to serve in some sort of post. It's sort of the language that Carson used where he said, I've been promised a position, sort of really made the hair stand on my arms, because that's illegal. I mean, you can't promise people a position for an endorsement. So perhaps he doesn't understand the nuance of what he actually said. But listen, if he's going to advise Trump, so far we have Carson, we have Sarah Palin, we have Chris Christie. I'd much rather see a brilliant surgeon like Ben Carson advising Trump than some of the other colorful people that he has on his campaign.
Any market bets on a potential Trump cabinet, Tina? I mean, a lot of people talk about Chris Christie going and becoming the Attorney General, by the way.
I feel a little bit faint when you said that, a Trump cabinet. Again, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet. Once the party conventions have happened, we have candidates, then everyone will talk about running mates. Yeah. Remember all the excitement initially when Sarah Palin, this kind of colorful character, was named the running mate, and then we got to know her better, sort of.
Trump is brilliant at surprising us, and he is going to surprise us with this VP pick.
He's going to have to keep going.
He's going to unite the party with somebody.
And he's no dummy.
He's no dummy.
And he's no dummy in terms of what it's going to take. He'll pick somebody as a running mate if he gets the nomination who will help him get to the White House in November.
Didn't he say he was going to choose a political person?
Yeah.
He did say that.
Yes.
By the way, do you think that the UK leaves the EU?
It's not our base case scenario, but at 30 to 40% probability, it's much more than a tail risk.
Wow.
So we are living in really uncertain times.
You say that again.
You have to keep your eye on the ball. Tina.